Artemis 1. How NASA's Artemis SLS will impact the economy. Deep space exploration is the next American frontier. Scientists at NASA are developing ways to enhance human development and productivity in outer space. The government policies and programs that are being developed won't just influence the next few years of cultural innovation, but also the next generations. For the first time in 50 years, NASA is on the precipice of launching a rocket that is designed to fly astronauts to the moon. But rather than leaving just flags and footprints in a dash to beat the Soviet Union, this time NASA is in a space race with China as it races to establish a permanent human presence on the moon. NASA plans on achieving this through the Artemis program. Stay tuned and remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to get updated whenever there's a new video on the channel. What you need to know about Artemis 1. Artemis 1 is a planned, uncrewed moon orbiting mission. It was scheduled to be the first spaceflight in NASA's Artemis program and its most expensive program to date. The launch of Artemis 1 will see an uncrewed Orion spacecraft orbit the moon for about 40 days. And from this space exploration, NASA will collect data and test key systems to better prepare for the crewed Artemis 2 moon mission, which is expected to launch in 2024. In hopes of achieving this, NASA has been working on a super tech known as SLS from 2017 to date. SLS is NASA's space launch system, and it's a super heavy lift, expendable launch vehicle that is under development by NASA. It's a major upgrade to the great Saturn V that carried the first astronauts to the moon in the Apollo mission of the 60s and the 70s. And with far more advanced technology, NASA's SLS will be the world's most powerful rocket to help transport space personnel and materials to the moon and even beyond. Unlike Elon Musk's SpaceX, which is developing a fully reusable moon rocket called Starship, NASA's SLS rocket is fully expendable, meaning it can only be used once. The ability to reuse rockets brings down the cost per launch dramatically, and America's space rival, China, is considering designing a fully reusable heavy lift rocket for future projects to the moon. Speaking of cost per launch, it took lots of time and billions of dollars to create the Space Launch System. Initially, the estimated cost to develop the SLS rocket was $6 billion, with a $500 million per launch price tag. But eventually, it skyrocketed to a developing cost of more than $20 billion, with a $4.1 billion per launch price tag. NASA's Inspector General spoke out on the exorbitant cost of production earlier this year. Quote, "Artemis is not the sustainable moon program that the agency's officials say it is. Likely more than $40 billion has already been spent on the program, and it's projected that NASA would spend $93 billion on this endeavor through 2025, when the first crewed landing is scheduled to occur." Critics of space programs sometimes question whether taxpayers should spend their money on space exploration when there are significant domestic issues to handle. In other words, how can NASA justify spending such a vast amount of money on space exploration? NASA's Artemis SLS impact on the American economy. There are major highlights about the ascending Artemis SLS project and its impact on the scientific community, as well as the economy in general. And the first is, NASA's Space Launch System will oversee the first woman and male of color to land on the moon. By 2024, NASA's SLS will land the first female and male of color on the south pole of the moon. This journey, of course, won't happen with the first launch, Artemis 1, as that flight won't have a crew aboard. The main objective of Artemis 1 is that NASA seeks to test out all the systems to make sure they're safe for astronauts on future missions. Meanwhile, Artemis 2, scheduled to launch by 2024, will send astronauts around the moon for the first time since 1972. Once again, astronauts will walk on the moon. The second major highlight. The Artemis program brings the goal of getting to Mars closer. The Artemis program seeks to set up science and research centers on the moon. If this is achieved, NASA will create sustainable stations that make space exploration easier, and this puts the goal of getting the first human on Mars within reach. Cabana, director of the John F. Kennedy Space Center, the launch site for the Artemis 1 mission, gave a statement. Quote, "Our goal is to go to the moon, to set it up in a sustainable way, and learn what we need to know because the moon is a stepping stone to Mars. Mars is the ultimate destination. So I see us as hopefully having a sustainable presence on the moon in the late 2020s. He adjourned that spending on space exploration makes the country and the planet stronger. In his own words, he stated that it's best to have the longest view in the room when it comes to space exploration. The science being conducted aboard the International Space Station, in the words of Cubana, quote, is really remarkable, and so we must create a presence outside our home planet in our solar system. If we are to survive, it will be essential. Who can predict what might occur in the future? We must be prepared for the possibility that the massive asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs will strike again. The third major highlight, Artemis 1 and other space programs have a major impact on local and state communities. Bill Posey, the US representative for Florida's Space Coast, claims that space programs don't just impact the communities in which they reside, but remain beneficial as a global resource. He gave reasons for his first statement. Quote, first, the Artemis program is important to our national security, to our technology advancement, to our economy, and most important, to the ultimate survival of our species. He goes on to say, quote, our space program provides so many modern-day conveniences and comforts and necessities as we come to know them today. Without the satellite system we have, we could be thrown back into the dark ages. A couple of years ago, America just barely escaped an unanticipated solar flare that crossed the path of our orbit a week before we got there. We would have been back in the Stone Age. No laptops, no cell phones, no groceries, no gasoline. Space programs value small businesses as essential partners. NASA's space programs aren't built by large corporations, but are built on the backs of small businesses that remain essential partners in these programs. Small businesses are the heart of our nation's economy, and NASA gives more than 85% of its budget to such procurements. At the heart of the Artemis program, 2/3 of the suppliers for the rocket itself have come from small businesses. It's about 800 supplier companies from across 53 states. And recent data from the Small Business Administration shows that NASA provides about $2.8 billion a year directly to small businesses. In 2019, NASA did business with 55 companies in Louisiana and Mississippi, allocating contracts worth more than $116 million. That same year, NASA employed 182 civil servants in Louisiana. NASA is responsible for a total of 2,474 jobs in Louisiana, and it generates nearly $14 million in tax revenue for state and local governments in Louisiana. With such a hefty economic impact, it's essential for local lawmakers to secure funding for these projects to continue this financial growth, not just in Louisiana, but in every state that it impacts. A timely study measured gains from public spending during the Apollo program. They found a return on investment greater than 20%, thanks to accelerated innovation technologies from silicon chips to robotics, and the long-term gains in local areas where NASA set up research and manufacturing centers. While the Artemis program is unlikely to have an impact as large, in part because it relies on proven technology, its benefits will be more diffused than just gains from exploration. We've come to the end of the video. If you stayed till this point, then you found this content interesting. Tell us what you think in the comment section down below, and support us by hitting the like button. Also subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you're notified the next time we upload valuable content like this. Thank you for your time, and until next time, stay inspired.